Hello and welcome! Alright, so in this lecture, let's actually begin creating a brand new project. Alright, so in the previous section, Gary already covered an overview for Unity Hub, how to download it and how it works, and he also covered installing Visual Studio Code and some default plugins. Alright, so let's open up Unity Hub. Now, before we create a new project, let's talk about the various Unity versions. Unity has essentially two types of versions. You've got long-term support and you have Tech. Basically, Tech is the cutting-edge version with all of the latest tools and features. However, because it's so new, it might have some stability issues, so generally you are recommended to use the latest LTS version. If you've seen my videos, that's the version that I always use. However, here in this course, we're actually going to be using the latest Tech version, which is 22.1. The reason for that is simply to keep the course up to date for as long as possible. But don't worry too much about the Unity versions. Everything you'll learn in this course and in this version, you will then be able to use in any other newer or older Unity version. However, do make sure you follow the course using the exact same version as me in order to avoid any minor issues from menus being placed in somewhat different places. So in Unity Hub, just go ahead and install the editor, and then scroll down here and find 22.1. Now if you're watching this quite a long time in the future and you only see version 22.2 and not 22.1, you can also click here on the archive and go there and download any version. Like I said, everything we're going to build here works with any Unity version, but different Unity versions sometimes have menus in different places. So in order to make sure that you don't get lost because a certain menu is in a different position, just because that, make sure you're using the exact same version as me. Okay, so with the Unity version selected, go ahead and click on Install. With that done, then go back into the Projects tab. And over here, let's click on New Project. Then the Unity version is up here, so click and make sure you select 22.1. Then on the right here, we already see some things. So the project name, let's call this the Turn-Based Strategy course. And then choose the folder you want to install. Then for the template over here, let's go with this one down here, the 3D URP. If you see a button saying download template, go ahead and click on it. Make sure you choose this one and not this one that just says 3D or this one that says the sample scene. So just this one, 3D URP. The difference is that this one contains a sample scene to see how URP works. And this one only comes with the built-in render, whereas this one comes with exactly what we want. So it's an empty scene, but it already has URP set up. Okay, so choose that template, make sure you select the correct editor version, give it a name, select the folder, and hit on Create Project. Alright, so here we have our empty Unity project. Now if you see a window talking about upgrading URP materials, just go ahead and click on OK to automatically update anything that needs to. So here we have our new project. And by default, it comes with a URP empty template, just a README to learn about URP and so on. So if you want to learn specifically about rendering or URP, then you can check out these documentations. But in our case, we just want to make a game, so you can go ahead, click on this button in order to remove all the URP README assets. And yep, that's it. Over here we have our starting point, a completely empty project, so now let's continue. Here we have the default Unity layout. Now, it's very important that you feel comfortable with your layout, that you have easy access to all the things that you need, and you know where everything is. You can see there's lots of tabs everywhere, like right down the middle we have the scene view, then on the right we have the inspector, on the left the hierarchy, and so on. By clicking and dragging on the title of each window, you can drag it and place it anywhere, so you can customize the editor to look exactly as you want it. You can set it up in any way, but it will be easier to follow this course if you're using the exact same layout as me. I've been using Unity for 10 years now, so let's see the layout that I've developed over the years. For the inspector, I like to keep it over here on the right side. That way we always have a nice view of the selected object and whatever scripts and components it has. Then for the hierarchy, I like to place it on the lower left corner. We're going to make sure that our scene hierarchy is always organized, so we don't need this to take a massive amount of space. Then the project files next to it over here on this bottom center, with the console placed on the tab next to it. Usually I find that when making a game, I want to look at the project window, but then when testing and playing the game, I want to look at the console. So keeping them in the same place but on different tabs works great. And then down the center we have the scene view and with the game view on the tab next to it. Again, we only need to see one of these at a time, so keeping them in separate tabs is really what's best. Okay, so this is the basic layout that I normally use. Now for a couple more options. On the project files window, you can click on these three dots on the right side to see many more options. On this one, I like to select just a one column layout instead of two. That way it makes things much more compact. If you need to browse lots of visuals in your project files, you can swap back to the 2-column, but for the most time, this compact view works great. Also, since we're here, just in case you don't know, there's this button over here with the eye. If you toggle it, then the installed packages are hidden, so if you expand the packages down here, it doesn't show anything. Whereas if you untoggle this, then you can see all of the various packages installed in this project. All of the packages contain all the source code, all the things, and so on. So if you want to browse the packages, you can untick this, but otherwise keep it toggled in order to keep the project window nice and simple. Then next to it on the console tab, we also have the 3 dots for some more options. And an important one is over here, the log entry. You can select how many lines are shown in the log. Again, I like things nice and compact, so I prefer to set it with 1 line. So like this, it occupies just 1 line, and if you set the other one, it shows a bit more. And of course, regardless of what you choose, you can just click on it, and down here you can see the whole message. Then one more thing, on the game view, on the aspect button, let's swap it out from free aspect onto 16:9. Now this will really only matter when you start working on the UI, but I like to keep it with 16:9 always. That's the standard aspect ratio for pretty much any desktop. And also untick low resolution aspect ratio so it occupies the entire size of the window. This option is only clickable depending on your monitor resolution. So if in your case it's unclickable, then there's no need to touch it. Next up on the scene view, here the default should be pretty good. So on the first button here, keep everything on pivot instead of center. Then on the next one, keeping it on local instead of global. You can leave the grid visible on the y-axis by default. Then there's no need to play around with any snapping for now. Next up on the right side here, leave the shading mode on shaded. This is a 3D game, so untick 2D. We do want the lights to be enabled, sound disabled, effects, all of them enabled. Then the hidden object visibility, the scene camera, and the regular gizmos. Finally, on the left side, over here on this Unity version, we have this little tools tab. You can now dock it anywhere you want, so you can leave them here if you want, or you can place them over there if you prefer it horizontally, so anywhere you want. So for me, I'm going to leave this on default. Just place it right down there. Alright, so here is the layout that I'm going to be using throughout the course. It will be easier to follow the course if you're using the exact same layout as me, so ideally you should be using this. But again, like I said, all of the windows are customizable, so if there's something you absolutely prefer differently, then go ahead. Your quick challenge on this lecture is simply to play around the editor for a bit, see if you like this layout or if you prefer changing some things. Again, you can customize pretty much anything, so go ahead, pause the video, play with the editor, and see if you like this layout. Alright, welcome back. So once you have a layout that you're happy with, you can go up here on the top right corner on the layout button. You can click on it, and there's a button to save that layout. So you can click on it, give it a name, let's say TBS course. And now let's say there was some issue and Unity reverted back into the default layout, so you can just go ahead, reload that saved layout, and there it is. Alright, so in this lecture we created a brand new project, and we also set up the layout exactly as we wanted in order to make things easier to work with. Make sure you're happy with your layout, and then let's go into the next lecture.